The Sam Sorbo Show is brought to you in partnership by the Herzog Foundation.
Sam Sorbo.
Sam, welcome back to the program.
I'm glad to welcome Sam Sorbo.
It's great to have you here.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Sam Sorbo Show. My guest is somebody who has recently been on the show, but she is so active that I had to bring her back on again. The Department of Justice recently spent more than $100 million over the last 4 years on education programs that are related to restorative justice, social emotional learning, and you named it DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. She's here to talk about all of that, plus the recent Trump inauguration and some other things that have been making the news. Elena Barbera is known better as the Based Mother. She is a Christian mother, an author, also a filmmaker. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And she's dedicated to exposing the dangers facing children in today's society and schools, and also to equip parents with the truth. And so let's bring her on, shall we? Welcome to the program.
Hi, Sam. So nice to be back.
Well, it's great to see you. And you are so active. By the way, like I get hit up by a number of different publicists. How is it that you have all of these different publicists working for you?
Oh, it's just one team that they must not. Maybe I should tell them they should be talking to each other better because it's all the same company.
I think that they talk to each other, but they each have like different letterhead or, email style or whatever. So it appears like we're getting bombarded from several different sources. And I was very impressed, but I'm more impressed with you and what you've been able to do to bring attention to the dangers that are facing our children, particularly in the schools. Why don't we talk first about this money that the DOJ, is it the DOJ? Yeah, the Department of Justice has spent in sort of revamping our schools and redefining what constitutes an education.
It's really hard. I haven't heard one good reason yet why the DOJ felt the need to spend $100 million on this type of stuff. It doesn't make sense to me. The DOE, we also found out, spent $1.1 billion during the Biden administration on this stuff. But at least they call themselves the Department of Education, even if they're not really. So. So I think this is the DOJ has their departments that are into things like social justice. So they want to, teach children that they should look suspiciously at the other children because one of you is the oppressor, one of you is the oppressed. The real beauty though here and the real joy is, a few weeks ago we were talking about this and when this news broke, but now the news has broken that DEI is now being removed from the federal government funding. So there will be no more federally funded DEI programs going into and contaminating our children. It's really pretty fantastic.
Yeah. Forgive me. I'm always a skeptic. So I'm optimistic, but I'm skeptically optimistic. And so when they say there will be no funding, I want to see that budgets have been slashed, not rerouted. And that's what I'm concerned about here is the problem is that we have a bunch of ideas. It's like when they change the curriculum in the schools, but they don't change the teachers, it's going to have very little effect. Maybe it'll have a little bit of effect because the books will change, right? And so the teachers kind of have to go along with at least the books, but they can color well outside the lines. And, I just interviewed a gal who, when her daughter was in first grade, I think it was, they did away with parent-teacher conferences. And somebody actually texted me on that interview and said that when their child went to school, they asked to see, can I get the curriculum? Can I see the books that we're going to be teaching our kids? No, that's not available to parents. So, okay, they're not going to fund DEI, but how is that going to really restore much of anything, especially if you've got ideologues who believe in DEI and will teach it to the kids anyway?
So I'm so glad you brought this up, because what they'll do is they're going to change. We have to be on guard, because what was once called affirmative action, has now over the years developed into diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they're just going to slap another brand on it and try to get it to pass. We know that. So I do think that there's going to be some, oversight, or I hope that there's going to be some oversight from the new cabinet members to look at their agencies and say, no, you're not just, showing me, a rose by any other name, kind of a thing. As far as the hiding information from parents, so that's something that I would love the president to take on, because a lot of districts make parents submit a Freedom of Information Act request in order to find out what books are in the curriculum, what books are on the library bookshelves. And that is absolutely ridiculous.
And then they sue them for submitting the FOIA.
Yes. Well, what's happening? Well, I'm hoping that Matt Nonsanchek, who is a deputy at the Department of Education, I'm hoping he got fired this week, or is packing up his desk as we speak, because he was somebody that was teaching parents how to file civil rights complaints when a book was removed. So, that was coming from the Biden administration directly to make it hard for parents to have any control over their children's education. And I think that's coming to an end.
Well, we can hope so, but there's really only one answer here, and this is what I'm working for. I'm working toward at least getting a seat at the table to make this clear to the adults in the room. The solution here is more parental involvement, not less. And it actually, the best scenario is that the parental involvement is maximized and everybody else's involvement would be minimized. That would be home education. And that would be, obviously, that's actually the best solution. And that's why homeschool children score between 15 and 25% better across the board on the standardized academic tests. Because when you maximize parental involvement, you simply get better outcomes. What I'm hoping to see is maybe parents get involved more locally, and we get rid of the county school boards, and we just localize the school board. Your school has its own board. Your school determines what it will teach the children, based on, and of course the state will want to implement standards, which I, struggle with, because I don't think that the state actually knows. And in fact, I think we can prove now the educators don't even know what's best for the children. They are highly suspect at this point. So if you get the parents involved and the parents say, we want a teacher who teaches science, then they can interview teachers and find a teacher who teaches science, and that's the teacher that gets hired.
I love this idea of increased parent involvement. But one of the things that has to happen, especially in cities, in order to do that, is to stop busing kids. So when they started busing kids across town, and because I lived in the city, I know all about this. They started busing kids across town. Now parents, especially, along came feminism, all the women are working, the men are working, the family, everybody's getting divorced. Nobody can go to the kids' school, because when you have to go to work and to make it across town on the regular, to make sure that your kid's teacher, that the principal, is not feasible. So to truly create schools where kids are going to school in their own neighborhood, with teachers who live nearby, with parents who are able to get there every morning. Imagine if you have to look a parent in the eye every morning as they drop their child off, you may act a little bit differently than if you don't even know who they are, because these teachers truly then believe that they are their children. These are my kids. That's the language they use. These are my kids. No, they're not.
Yeah, they're prepared. See, I believe that they are prepared to look the parent in the eye every day if they have to, with the understanding that the parent doesn't control the child. They control the child. It's their child at this point. And the parent is persona non grata, and ignoramus, has nothing to add further. You give me the children, and then you be on your way, and we'll return them to you fully formed, but hateful of your ideas and ideologies.
Gosh, yeah, they do. You do make a good point that they really do think that they have the moral high ground as well as the intellectual high ground.
Well, they've been trained to think that. I firmly believe. Now, I never went to teaching college, but I firmly believe, it seems, certainly from the evidence, that at the end of teaching college, these young people are equipped with a knowledge that they are better than the parents that they serve.
Well, I don't know if it's changing now, but I'd say a couple of years ago, I did spend some time digging into teaching college materials, and they're in their their other marketing materials where they're trying to attract applicants. They talked about climate change, social justice, equity, and
Right.
so they're teaching these teachers to put that into everything. And I'm hoping that now that all this is coming to a change, that will change. But I think that's going to be a really hard change to make, because I don't think that the university structure, which just love their wokeness, I don't think they're going to let go that easily.
I mean, what's the metric for it changing when the teachers are happy to teach this? The students are now happy to learn it. You see, initially, the teachers were taught to love DEI, say, okay? So then as students, right? Then as
Mhm.
students, then they become teachers and they're happy to teach it. So then they recruit new students to teach this stuff to. So now it's fully invested in the teaching colleges, and it's going to be very difficult to unseat. And along with that, you have to understand, because they've supplanted academics, these people actually believe that academics are secondary. And you know what, Elena, they're right. They're right,
Yeah.
because the primary goal in education is to turn out a well-rounded, capable, loving human being and citizen. That's the goal. And so their goal is to turn out their kind of citizen, which is an activist who is devoted to leftist policy. And let's say our goal, my goal, would be to turn out a well-rounded citizen who loves this nation, supports the values of the values that gave us our freedoms, and wants to continue those and will stand and defend those values, right? I mean, it's a completely different product. And right now, the so-called educators are turning out a fault, what I would say is a faulty product. And I don't know how we can reclaim that and make it better. Now, there are plenty of people involved in the system who sort of don't have a pony in this race, and they're sort of not committed either way. They're maybe they're partially committed, but they're not really devoted that way. Maybe they just want to teach. They love kids, they love being around kids, they want to teach them, right? I don't know how we sort of salvage those people and retain those people while trying to weed out the chaff.
Wow, you gave me a lot there. So first of all, the products that they're trying to turn out, these well-rounded, loving, productive, capable people, they are completely failing at all of that. The kids
I
can't
know.
read, they can't do math, they're not capable of anything, they're emotionally defunct, they're not loving, they're angry, right? So,
They can't
so
they can't adult. We have a new word for it because nobody knows what it means anymore because we're
yeah,
not parented, right? This is the struggle with school, is it replaces the parent. And so the children are growing up largely unparented, which means that they don't know how to be an adult.
yeah, they don't even know how to be children anymore. I mean,
Oh,
everything
well,
is
yeah, tell me. Yeah. Okay. That's also all right, but continue.
But
You're saying,
and as far as how to change it, I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like, we need more homeschooling going on. We need this to be an economic pinch for the teachers unions and for the schools for their funding. So if we can tie federal education funding to removal of DEI and removal of pride flags and all that, that would be one pressure point that we could put in. The more kids that we pull out of the schools could be another pressure point. And those teachers, the ones who you talked about, who just want to teach, they like kids, they actually want to help them succeed, they need to stand up. Enough is enough.
mm,
God bless them. I'm glad they stuck it out and they're still in there. But had they looked at each other and said, guys, let's get together and stand up against this right on day one, we may not have gotten this far down this horrible path for our children.
that is a very good point. I'll remind you, while not all of this happened during COVID, a lot of it happened during COVID. Like we were completely subverted, took our eye off the ball because there was this other huge distraction, and I think that was part of the plan. Maybe we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to ask you about federal funding because that is also a point of contention, especially with School Choice Week. I think it's next week, actually. and the federal funding. And Trump recently announced that he was going to be withholding federal funds and doing some other stuff like that. So I think that warrants parking on and discussing a little bit more. And then I want to talk to you about the Episcopal bishopess who literally looked Trump in the eye and gave him a stern talking to, which was really quite contentious. And so we'll talk about that when we come back. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. Stay tuned. Hi there. So for years, I've been harping on the problems in our schools and the fact that most of our government schools, our factory schools, have been overrun by this progressive ideology that is really at war with our traditional American values, our Judeo-Christian values. And parents have finally started waking up more and more, which pleases me to no end. But they're worried about what to do. They are not sure which way to turn, and that's why it gives me great pleasure to announce my continuing partnership with the Herzog Foundation. So the Herzog Foundation is a trusted source for K through 12 Christian education. They have a really remarkable suite of resources for parents and for families. They have an online publication known as The Lion and a network of podcasts, including mine. So they can offer a wide range of advice and information for Christian parents to make the best decisions regarding the education of their children and the values that they instill in their children. And so if you want to find out any more about this remarkable organization, just go to herzogfoundation.com. That's herzogfoundation.com. Thanks so much. Give your friend the very best with farm-to-pet dog treats made from 100% single human-grade ingredients. These treats never include byproducts, binders, fillers, additives, preservatives, or artificial ingredients. Just pure, wholesome goodness. Visit farmtopettreats.com and use code SAMSORBO to get 25% off your next order. Treat your dog to healthy, delicious snacks they will love today. Welcome back to the Sam Sorbo Show. My guest is Elena Barbera, and she is the based mother, also a producer of a fabulous documentary, which we will talk about. So Elena Barbera, welcome back on. And I want to talk to you about this comment that you made right before the break. And this is a difficult topic, right? Because there's a lot of money that is spent on quote unquote education. And right now they are doing not education. We can call it something else. And I call it school, but I don't call it education because it is filled with lies. And I don't believe you can claim to educate somebody by lying to them. So I'm going to call it school. Trump has recently come out and said, we are going to limit funding. We will play favorites with schools who toe the line on the DEI stuff, getting rid of it, and on, only two genders or whatever, and getting rid of the transgender bathrooms and transgender accommodations. I mean, there's so much money that has been spent on what I'll call special interests. Now, I struggle with that because my plan, they didn't consult me, but my plan was we shut down the Department of Education on the federal level because it is completely uncalled for. It's anti-constitutional. Because it's not in the Constitution. They just developed it. Carter just named it and made it so, like he was God. And so we ended up with the Department of Education, which the struggle that I have is in this nation, we are of the people, by the people, and for the people. Our government should not be involved in training us what to think about the government. That's a conflict of interest. And so when Trump ran on shutting down the Department of Education, part of that shutting down of the Department of Education did not come with, but we will pick favorites and we will funnel money. It was, we will not be involved in the money aspect of education, and every state sink or swim, which was the Federalists' idea. the states compete. Better states have better education outcomes because they get their schools in shape, and other states have big problems because they don't. You mentioned you were on board with the federal government sort of incentivizing good behavior in states and their school systems. So now that I've sort of thrown that out there, what's your take on all of that?
Well, maybe I wasn't really clear because I'm actually in your camp. That's what I want. I want it to shut down. Let's create competition and let's let the best states win. But what we're living in right now is once Trump appointed a new Secretary of Education or nominated a new Secretary of Education, it became I guess this is what we're doing conversation.
Oh, interesting, because my understanding was that her mandate is to shut down the Department of Education. That's why, like, I'm not asking for a job. I don't really want a job, but I do want a voice, right? I think that the federal government can have a voice, but maybe not tie it to funds. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to just see it shut down. I'm with you, but where we are right now with it still existing, there were a couple of things where funding is immediately going to dry up. So the DEI executive order that came out and the anti gender affirming executive order that came out, both of them talk about how zero federal funds can be used for these types of programs. And schools,
just to clarify, the executive order or the statement that Trump made, no, it wasn't an executive order, you're correct, was there are two genders. Like, that's basically the gist of it. There are two genders. Those are the recognized genders. The rest of it is poppycock, and it won't be funded.
That's right. And nothing around there will be funded, and they all have to remove all of their gender. If when you're filling out a government form, if there was any federal money there and it says, are you a male, female, or other, or this or that, all the others are being removed. You're male or female, you're just sex. And anybody who got their license changed and lied is going to have to go back to the DMV and fix that out, or the passport office and get that fixed up, because he said, in that order, one of the things he said is that federal policy must be based in truth. And that is one of the biggest takeaways I got from reading all of these orders. I've had a good time with it. And it's so a lot of the things that they're seeing in the schools are coming from federal tax dollars, and there's no taxpayer who should have to pay for this kind of division and confusion being fed to our children. And not only that, it makes them unsafe. Women and girls being, having to change and play sports with men is just a level of absurdity. Like, I still, Sam, feel like some days, like, someone's going to tap me on the shoulder and I'm going to wake up and I'm going to say, you're not going to believe the dream I had over the past, 5 years, because it doesn't feel real, but at least we're getting back to reality.
What's weird is, like, when I go to purchase an airline ticket or whatever, and it says male, female, I'm like, where's the other box? Because there used to be an other box, and some places they have it. And so it's this weird sort of, some people believe, in this, it's this new religion is really what it is. And they are indoctrinating our children in a new religion. And it's a very dangerous religion, right?
It's extremely dangerous. So the puberty blockers and the hormones that they give kids are exacerbating anxiety and depression. If a child has, say, like a bipolar disorder, there's a very high risk that it's going to be exacerbated by the medications that they're giving these kids. But they're giving it to them anyway.
Is there a study on that?
Yeah, I can send you some information after this. Yeah.
So my audience understands. Elena has done an absolutely brilliant documentary, I have to say, and I called her immediately when I saw the documentary because it really goes into depth on the struggles that the overall struggle that we're having against this ideology and how it has permeated our schools and how detrimental it is. And I've talked a lot to what is it? Reverse trans? What do they call it?
Detransitioners.
Thank you. There's a word for it now. Oh my gosh, new vocabulary. To detransitioners, and it's very dangerous. I know that they haven't done any long-term studies on many of the drugs that they prescribe for transitioning, or for detransitioning, for that matter. But this is the first that I've heard on just the side effects of the drugs, and there must be side effects. We know that there are always side effects. Luckily now we are entering into a maha moment where we're trying to be healthy, and we're taking stock of sort of the amount of stuff that's just in our regular diet that may be not good for us. And so maybe people will wake up and go, well, just because he has some psychological issues with his born sex, maybe medicating him is not the answer. Like, I'm hopeful, right?
Well, the people who are making a lot of money on this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. They are not going to see it that way.
No, of course not.
And so Boston Children's Hospital, for example, which has always been known as one of the best children's hospitals in the country, if you go to their gender clinic with your child, they do a 2-hour evaluation on the child before pushing them into the pipeline.
Which consists of, what gender are you? I'm a girl.
Yeah, or I'm neither, or I'm both. Sometimes I'm a boy, sometimes I'm a girl, sometimes I'm
maybe repeated 10 times for 2 hours or whatever.
Right. So this kid saw a bunch of TikTok videos. It maybe is a little bit of a loner and found a community online that they were like, come on in, because everybody's welcome there, unless you're telling the truth. Everybody who's broken is welcome there. They convince them that this is why you're sad. And then they go, and after only 2 hours, one of the best hospitals in the country is treating children for gender dysphoria, putting them on hormone blockers and putting them into a surgery pipeline, because they're doing surgery on children. Don't let them tell you they're not.
Right. Is that the same place? This was uncovered a couple of years ago, actually. Somebody from one of these institutions was speaking at like a conference and said every transitioner is like a $180,000 payday for us, something like that. Like, they were obviously financially incentivized to promote this ideology, to promote the services. And this is the problem that I think Maha will begin to address, and the public is starting to wake up to, is unfortunately every doctor has a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Every chiropractor has a conflict of interest. I struggle with chiropractors because one almost killed my husband. So that's just a point of contention for me. But they're not incentivized to cure you if they can just keep you as a repeat customer. And specifically chiropractors, it's like $15 a visit or $25 a visit. It's like, just, stop in, clickety clack, and you're done, except you're going to have to go back the next week. How do we break this without really changing the ideology, like really attacking the ideology?
Frankly, I think it's criminal. I think there's got to be a way in the criminal code I'm not a lawyer and I wish I was, to make it illegal, a crime, to put unnecessary surgical procedures and unnecessary medications on a child. So for example, like you can take morphine if it's prescribed for pain and you're in excruciating pain, but you can't take it for fun. That's criminal. That's illegal.
I'm just sad about that. That's too bad.
Yeah, I know. There goes your weekend. But
it's interesting. There are 2 lawsuits happening in California, I think. Chloe Coles and another detransitioner are both suing their insurance companies for paying for the surgery. They signed the waiver with the medical providers, but the insurance companies never asked them to sign a waiver. So they're pursuing that. You need a plaintiff. You don't need a lawyer. You need a harmed individual who can serve as the plaintiff, and then you find the lawyer to pick up the case. So it's an interesting thought, Elena. It's very good.
Yeah. So in civilly, that can be done immediately. I mean, there are enough detransitioners to put together class action lawsuits against all these doctors and the mental health professionals and everyone involved in pushing this. And frankly, class action lawsuits have ways of just drawing in anybody that ever said anything, anybody that just happened to walk into the room while something was happening. So like, throw it at the schools, throw it at the teachers unions. Let's go. If we put enough pressure on them.
Plaintiffs, but you're talking about defendants. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about defendants. Yeah, like just stack them
Yeah.
up. Let's go. Anything to protect the children. And I'm not a litigious person. I have been hurt in so many situations physically by negligence where I'm like, it's okay, it happens. Like I don't care. This is children who are being brainwashed and permanently altered, and families being torn apart by this ideology. It has to stop.
So I want to speak into that because not being a litigious person, I understand why you want to have that said. Like, I wouldn't resort to the law if I didn't have to.
Yeah.
But that's not why you're resorting to the law. The reason that you resort to the law is because you want to set a standard, and that's the way to do it. And the only way to get it done is with damages, so that somebody has to pay for the harm that they've done, and then other people will stop harming people in the same way. And that's the only way to get it done. You
Yeah.
you can't say, well, issue me an apology
No.
and we'll be good with it, because an apology won't get other people to stop. You need to put the rest of them on notice. So you've got to find a harmful, defendant and make them pay. And I go back all the way, if you remember the McDonald's coffee case,
Yeah.
where the woman had the coffee cup and it completely scalded her legs. And people at the time made fun of it because, oh my gosh, she's suing because a cup of coffee was hot. Don't people know that coffee's hot? No, that's not the point. The point is that McDonald's heated their coffee well above the necessary temperature, because the construction workers would come and get their coffee and they would carry it to the job site. And by the time it got there, it would be cold. So McDonald's adjusted that and heated their coffee enough to melt the glue at the bottom of the cup that was holding the cup together. And this poor woman, who was older, was the recipient of that. And she suffered third-degree burns on her thighs, which I can't even imagine. I can't. I mean,
Sounds terrible.
the fact that they made sort of a laughingstock in the courts notwithstanding, she won because they had to send a message to McDonald's and Burger King and the rest of them. If you're going to heat your coffee that high, you better get cups that can withstand it. It's that simple. It really was. I mean, it was ridiculous, but it was the only way to get the job done. And so when you're saying I'm not litigious, I think we should be litigious
Yeah.
on certain matters when it counts, when we need to be. And this is something that has to be done. Young people are being harmed every day. And I can't even, I get emotional about it because it's so evil. It's so evil. I refer you to Ayn Rand's article from like 1950. She wrote an article about the child buyers and people who willfully harm children, basically for a laugh, basically because it doesn't cost them anything, and then they have something amusing to look at later. And that's exactly what this is. Only the harm that she was talking about then, she then referred it into mental damage. And that's what we're seeing today. So these people are being damaged. These young people are being damaged mentally, and then they themselves harm their own bodies. It's sick. It's really sick.
It is. And then and again, like I said earlier, they're that sickness, they're bringing it home to their families, and it's tearing families apart in a lot of different ways. Some of these children are being taken by the state from their families because the parents don't want to affirm whatever delusions the child has. They're literally losing custody. Some of them, where the child is staying in the house, the parents don't want it, and the whole family is appalled, and everybody has to now cater to this madness in the house, and they don't all buy into it. It's making people, taking them out of church because they feel unwelcome. I mean, there's so many ways that this is destroying families, and not to mention the sterilization of these children, that they're not going to be able to have children of their own. The damage is so deep and so far reaching. So yeah, this is where, when I say I'm not litigious, in this case, let's go. Bring on the lawyers.
Let's bring it.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell people briefly about the documentary, and then I have to ask you about this bishop ass before I let you go.
Oh, okay. The documentary exposes the sexualization of children in American schools, primarily focusing on the pornography that's in all 50 states. And you can watch it for free at AmericanGroomerFilm.com. I also do touch on the transgender issue in there.
Right. And uh, oh, and I have a couple of just basic questions that I like to ask my guests before I let you go. But let's talk quickly about this bishop in the Episcopal Church, whose name, look, I looked everywhere to figure out how to pronounce it. It's Budde. So it's either Buddy, or Bood. I doubt that it's Bood. It might be Buddy. Strangely, there's actually a book called Bud, Not Buddy. It's a good book for kids, very good book for young people. It's a classic, but it has nothing to do with her because she is neither good nor classic. She literally took on President Trump. In her address, she admits to CNN later that she looked him in the eye because she was speaking directly to him. And if you remember, she asked him to have mercy on specifically lesbian, gay, and transgender children
Children.
who are very afraid.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now.
So, Elena, why are they afraid?
They are afraid because people like her are telling them that they should be afraid. And
Exactly right.
the irony of someone calling themselves a Christian, first of all, focusing on fear, because pastors are supposed to, the devil is the one who brings fear to the table, right?
Thank you for saying that. Like, that's literally, yes, I've been tweeting about this, and that was literally like, when you accept Christ, the fear is gone. The Bible actually admonishes us many, many times, have no fear, do not fear. And yet she's a fear mongerer, and so is CNN.
Yes. And there's a little more irony here, because
Okay.
when the Catholic Church, when those priests abused children, sexualizing children is bad in the Catholic Church, but an Episcopal bishop can get up and talk about who children are sexually attracted to and their body and how they feel about their privates, and we're not saying anything about that. What are we doing?
You know what? You're right. Like, even for the Episcopalian Church, maybe stay away from all that stuff. Like, it's highly incriminating. You're
Highly
absolutely right.
incriminating. It was just bonkers. The whole thing. I said, everyone is saying Donald Trump was subjected to a political speech. And I'm like, he was not subjected to a political speech. He was subjected to satanic words being spoken in the house of God. And that is what was really going on there. You cannot convince me otherwise.
You know, I think it's a great point, and I think it also comes under the purview of political because it was political. It was aimed at him politically, not from a religious morality standpoint. The reason that they're claiming it was political is because they are trying to rescind her tax exempt status or get her fired so the church can maintain its tax exemption. And frankly, political and religious are both the same thing. It's just that we think that they're different. But if you have a politician who says to you, no, I make policy decisions completely separate from my religion, that's a hypocrite. That's what that's called.
Of course. I guess I'm not looking at it as religious as much of a spiritual battle that,
You're right.
that we're seeing play out, because a lot of what we call politics is actually a spiritual battle.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, truer words I don't think have been spoken, and it's great to put it to sort of frame it in that context. I definitely think, and in fact, I've been saying we should make the Democrats a domestic terrorist organization. So we're totally on the same page. Okay. First question, what is your education background?
So let's see. I went to Boston University. I graduated, same alma mater as AOC. Not proud. I used to be proud. And I graduated with a degree in hospitality administration for hotel and restaurant management, which I didn't do. My first career was in the concert business. I worked for Bill Graham Presents and produced hundreds of concerts with them. That was a lot of fun. And now, and then I have and it went to other careers that weren't hospitality after that.
So you kind of answered my second question, which is, do you use it in your current career? I'm sure there are certain things that you learned in college that help you today, but by and large, do you use it in your current career?
No, not really. Well, a little bit. I mean, I do some event management. I do some. I'm volunteer. I volunteer to do events at my church, and so things like that. But not in my actual career. No, I unless trying. I'd say just having a hospitable heart is a big part of everything I try to do. So it
Yeah.
shows up.
You would have had that not going to college since that was your chosen field. So you already had that. So I don't know if I'm going to count that. And then last question. I just have fun with you, Elena. We probably should make this a weekly thing because it's just fun.
Would love to.
What advice would you give your younger self?
When someone's trying to tell you about God, just listen, because it would have. I know that if I had chosen to follow God the way I do now when I was younger, I would have eliminated a lot of troubles for myself that I brought on myself.
Interesting. Are you stronger, do you think, because of this?
Oh gosh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and not because I'm not trying to rely on my own strength anymore. That's why I'm
Wow.
stronger.
That's profound. Elena Barbera, the based mother. Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
So that's it for me for the Sam Sorbo Show. Please check out our sponsors and help support the show. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Remember, speak truth, speak it boldly. Look, I have it on my mug. See you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in the Sam Sorbo Show are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views and positions of the Herzog Foundation.